Well, good day, folks, and welcome back to the Secret Solve. The Secret Solve is a program where the talking hat sits there in front of the computer screen and tries to figure out what Byron Preiss and those other people were thinking about back when they put together the book The Secret. And today's episode is going to focus on the image number 7. So the image number 7, many people think is in someplace around New Orleans, but I have some other ideas on this, and so I'm going to present what I see in image number 7 for The Secret by Byron Preiss. So let's just start off by looking at the image. So the image has basically this background. This background is a checkerboard square. And this checkerboard square transitions from being a red and white traditional checkerboard to being a lavender colored checkerboard here at the bottom. And there's a lavender looking, I don't know, arm coming out of here. And anyway, I'm just going to go through this and identify the elements. So you've got the background, checkerboard going from a red and white to a lavender. In that checkerboard, you've got JJP putting his little initials over here. But okay, so there appears to be like a werewolf or a horse somewhere over here in the M and the N. It could be a donkey, might be a donkey. I don't know. Anyway, there's something sitting over there, a horse, a donkey, or something in one of those squares. The squares get to be a little bit strange looking at some point to where they don't actually look like they should. So this could be a blouse or it could be a sack. It could be like a coffee sack, an old time tea bag where you'd put some, I don't know, something in that and then you'd satchel it over and somebody could take that home. You've got a hairy looking arm coming out of that bag. And you've got this pole being held by an owl's toothed fingered hand. So those little those are actually claws, I guess you will, of an owl. So those are the exact claws that you would get in the KL 45. That's basically an owl's foot. That's what those look like. Then that moves up the stick a little bit to where you've got the Down syndrome baby. So, people tried to say that that's Satchmo or some New Orleans singer. I'm telling you, that's the eye shape of a Down syndrome baby. That's the lip shape of a Down syndrome baby. And another characteristic of a Down syndrome baby, unfortunately for the people in the secret, is the toenails, fingernails. So look up some of the things that you can use to identify a baby that has Down syndrome, and that will help you and identify that. So the hairy appearance of that arm, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So you've got the grandfatherly looking clock, uh, basically here with how many arches? So we got one arch at the top, another arch, then you've got another arch, and then you've got preservation written here with like two arrows coming up from each side. And as you can see, there's building blocks constructing that circle. So if you go GFED on the one side around the 4, and if you do the other on the 7, you see how that stops. So there's a stopping point where the two sides are coming together, and then there's preservation. Well, once I tell you about the time capsule at the arch, you'll maybe understand a little bit about how that works. You've got the 19 to 29, which was prohibition, uh, caused great problems for the brewing industry at that time. You've got the turquoise. So you've got the guy who's hanging from an arch. You got a guy hanging from the arch here in the center at the F and the 5 position. And then you've got the directional pointer on uh, the clock pointing to the 12 o'clock position. that looks like two eyes, like an owl, like an owl. Those are the hooter. Those are the eyes of an owl, or it could be an airplane uh, flying through the arch. But anyway, you got this guy dangling from the arch, and he's got a couple of feet. And some people think but he's got a parachute on the back. Maybe, I think. Looks like he's got a parachute. Uh, some people think that's a newspaper boy. Um, I just don't know if that would be the case. Um, there's some details I can't quite see, but if you look into the brown background at the G2 location, there's a horse in that brown background. So there's one horse sitting there. And then over, as you look on the other side of that clock, in the 8, F, and G, there's another horse bridled up and ready to go over in that general area. Um, it's almost like somebody's hitching up a wagon or something. There's so many horses in there. So anyway, let's just see if we can go through and identify some of these items in looking at a particular solve idea that I have. So, and if you want to follow along with this presentation, as always, go to the secretsolve.wordpress.com, and we're talking about image number 7. Okay, so some people have been pushing the solve for New Orleans for years, and the French Quarter. Anyway, I'm going to start out with the strongest evidence for St. Louis. In the back of the book, there's a story called The Spirit of St. Louis. Now, just as we have had in the Chicago, where we had the Chicago World's Ferry, and lo and behold, we found one in Chicago. I wouldn't think that the authors would try to confuse us by not putting one in St. Louis now, would they? And again, I didn't look for the state of Missouri in this image, but if you go to the back of the book, and there's a foot, and it's got an arch that goes from one toe, the big toe, over to the other toe. And it's a 3-toed kind of thing, and it's just one foot. Like, where's your other foot? Do you have a limp or something? I'm not sure at this point, but maybe later on we'll figure this out. So this image in the spotters, guys, gives us a potential starting, looking at the image, 2 arrows pointing towards preservation. And this, interestingly enough, during the construction of the arch in St. Louis, a time capsule was added to the monument. It was welded to the top of the arch inside the signatures of more than 700,000 St. Louisans, including school children. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole history of the naming of St. Louis and it being named after King Louis and all of that, because I think that's got to be a given, and you just have to look at the back of the book for all of the references to King Louis. And the fact that we have a story called the Spirit of St. Louis. So the arch was built from 2 sides, and if you then compare that, you can see how that comes together. There's several arch structures, the blue, and then the shape of the turquoise is also in an arch. And finally, the paper boy is dangling from an arch, if you will. So the parachute jumper, the near ace is high. This guy is actually known as the parachute jumper. Notice what looks like a parachute pack on his back. He also has 2 left feet. Let's examine more. In November of 1980, parachutist Kenneth Swires landed at the top of the arch in St. Louis and fell down one of the legs to his death. His wife, Millie Swires, told the Associated Press that Kenny was trying to glide between the monument's legs, but may have had trouble with the wind. A witness to the event, Peter Lohr, told the Associated Press that it looked like Kenneth Swires had aimed for the peak. In fact, Lohr said, he landed very well. I guess he had no footing. He just slid down fast. Where he landed was out of our field of vision, but I knew he was dead. So now let's look a little bit closer at the clock face. The clock face looks like some eyes. Uh, well, balloonist Nikki Kaplan in 1973 legally flew through the arch, ascending uh, with the Gateway Park director in her basket. The left eye appears to have a gondola basket in it, flying through the arch. So look at that. You see the flying basket going through the arch like a gondola. 5 airplanes were known to have flown through the arch without permission, according to the Smithsonian. The right eye appears to have an airplane in it. Okay, go look at that right eye. Yeah, that is look like an airplane, and that does look a gondola. Assuming that they were in the correct area of St. Louis, are there any additional confirmations? Well, let's look at the hands on the clock. The owl's eyes. Who knew? So the owl's eyes in the image. One of the fixtures of downtown St. Louis is at the Laclede's Landing is the Old Judge Coffee Company. And in fact, St. Louis was a hub for coffee trade. Well, go back to the image. Look at the arm. Is the arm actually coming out of a coffee sack? Maybe. Now look at the picture of the Old Judge Allspice that I put on here. Do the eyes look eerily familiar? Do the owl's toes look familiar? So again, going back to the image, we can look at some of the elements and relate to the owl. You know, the fingers, the toes, and then I put a picture of owl's toes here on this as well. And I put a picture of a burlap coffee sack bag so you can see the way in which those actually work. So this is one of several possible French connections, including Marie-Therese Bourgeois Chateau, Laclede, and other fur trappers. The most compelling argument for French relationships is the church. The Basilica of St. Louis, King France, the actual cathedral church is right here adjacent to the arch. So if you start at the Eads Bridge, you can look at the leaves are fairly large, assuming the national park. You could think that this picture with these eyes could be Mrs. Eads, and that you need to look at the Eads Bridge. The Eads Bridge was the longest arch bridge in the world when completed, and it seems like Byron has a fascination for bridges. And Joseph Pulitzer has this white handkerchief, and if you think that's a white handkerchief, then you could have something that has to do with that guy Pulitzer. Pulitzer used to spend his free time at the St. Louis Mercantile Library on the corner of 5th and Locust. And since we had this locust in the other image, or maybe somebody just said to one of these people in 12 Treasures, have you ever considered the locust? Or maybe 5th and Locust? And then they, but anyway, so if you look at Pulitzer, so Pulitzer obviously founded newspapers, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, et cetera, that's his connection to this. The werewolf or other thing could be explained by this as well. So in 1878, Pulitzer bought the St. Louis Dispatch and merged it with the St. Louis Post. So in October, Pulitzer listened to German Secretary read aloud about King Louis the 11th of France. So he actually died. I guess Pulitzer died as he was listening to German Secretary read. And he said in German, softly, quite softly, and then he died. So it's all about Louis, St. Louis. So one of my solve ideas is that at Stonewall's door, and this is the Laclede Bridge. The air smells sweet, and this is the Old Judge Coffee Company. Then you could say, not far away, High Post are 3, and you have the 3 bridge sections there. Uh, if you actually look at the image, that 1 in front of the 9 is actually a post, a pillar post, and it looks similar to the number 3 pillar post. Education and justice for all to see. Old Judge. Sounds from the sky. Near Aces High. Again, the guy couldn't quite make it. So running north, but first across. Okay, you've got to go the length of the thing. You look at the clock tower on the St. Louis. Look at the shape of the window. You see the shape of the window. I'm now at the picture on my story of the Jules direction. I'm looking at the church, and look at the shape of that window in that building with the clock tower on it. Is an object of Twain's attention. Well, this is the river, Mississippi River. A giant pole. So if you look at the arch from the side, it's actually one giant pole. You don't see the other pole. So it's a giant pole looking at it from one side. So when you view it, and then there's a giant step. So there's these set of steps, if you will, in the little park that's not in the national park, that's adjacent to the arch. So basically, if you go north of the national park, there's this tiny small park that's adjacent to where the arch is, and there's this giant step to get up there to the place the cask is kept. And so there's this area above the giant step, if you will, right near the fence. And if you take an aerial photograph, you look at the post, and you look at the shadow that the posts make, and so I'm now basically on the area above the giant step. You see how that little that one post, when you have the light shining on it, it ends up making the exact same shape as the image itself. And so, and if you look at that area where the steps come up and there's a landing, it's almost the shape the same as the area of the stone. In other words, it kind of gets widened out. And so I'm thinking that this is a possibility of where the cask might be located. I put a couple of other additional locations in here under a bridge and a few other places. But once I kind of started thinking about this and the importance of the lavender in it, I felt like I hadn't really incorporated into my solve on my WordPress site everything that might be going on in this image. I might have it, down to the arch and things that are important about that, but I actually think I didn't incorporate enough of some of this other information, like the lavender and like the baby, the face of the child. So I went back and I reviewed this some more, and I came up with the idea that this maybe has to do a little bit with the history of brewing. And I found another couple of buildings that have these unique shapes to them. And one of them is the Limp Mansion. And if you go to limpmansion.com, this is the tab I'm on. And this is America's first lager beer brewers. When John Adam Limp arrived in St. Louis from Germany in 1838, he seemed no different from thousands of other immigrants. But his family was different because his father, and so anyway, he started to use the natural cave system under St. Louis because it provided the perfect temperature for aging beer. So the Limp Brewery was using this underground preservation method for aging its beer. And so he went on and established a brewery at South 2nd Street, and an industry was born. John Adam Lamp died a millionaire. William J. Lamp succeeded his father as the head of the brewery and soon built it into an industrial giant. Oh, another giant. In 1864, a new plant was erected at Cherokee Street and Carondelet Avenue. The size of the brewer grew with the demand for its products, and it soon covered 5 city blocks. Uh, so by 1870, Limp was the largest brewery in St. Louis. Not Budweiser, not Budweiser. It was the Limp Brewery. Uh, a position that it held up until Prohibition. So in 1872, the brewing industry's titans toasted each other when William Limp's daughter, Hilda, married Gustav Pabst uh, of the noted Milwaukee brewing family. I'm not making this stuff up. Pabst, William Limp's daughter, Hilda, married Gustav Pabst. A little Milwaukee St. Louis connection there. Uh, the demise of the Limp Empire is one of the greatest mercantile mysteries of St. Louis. The Limp dynasty occurred when Frederick Limp, William's favorite son and heir apparent to the brewery, died under mysterious circumstances in 1901. I always like a death under mysterious circumstances. 3 years later, William J. Limp shot himself in the head in a bedroom at the family mansion, apparently still grieving the loss of his beloved Frederick. William J. Jr. succeeded his father as president. Tragedy continued to stalk the Limps with startling ardor. The brewery fortune continued to decline until Prohibition closed, closed the plant permanently. Uh, William Jr.'s sister Elsa, who was considered the wealthiest heiress in St. Louis, committed suicide in 1920. And then on June 28, 1922, the magnificent Limp Brewery, which had once been valued at $7 million in 1920 dollars, was sold at auction to the International Shoe Company for less than $500,000. So the uh, International Shoe becomes Volume Shoe. How many shoes do you see? How many feet do you see in the back of the book in the different places? Uh, it's a plethora. So William J. Limp Jr. shot himself in the same building where his father died 18 years earlier. His son, William Limp III, was 42 when he died of a heart attack in 1943. William Jr.'s brother, Charles, continued to reside in the house after his brother's suicide. An extremely bitter man, Charles led a reclusive existence until he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Uh, the body was discovered by his brother Edwin and his sister Edwina. Okay, I added that Edwina to that. So the Limp Mansion, it's a place that people think might maybe be haunted. Um, so then I looked into the Lavender Lady. So I see this arm coming out of this a blouse maybe, and if it's not a coffee sack and it's really a blouse, and there's a lavender in the background, what can I use to explain that? So so the Limp Brewery was rocked in the years before the World War by the very public battles between William Limp Jr. and Lillian Hanlon Limp, the Lavender Lady. And during this scandalous divorce trial and the subsequent custody disputes, Lillian's nickname was derived from her penchant of frequently dressing in her favorite color, lavender, and going so far as to have her carriage horses harnessed and dyed lavender. Oh, maybe that's a lavender horse in that image. For the length of the messy trial. So anyway, they put out all of this um, information about uh, this. They had this long retracted court battle, and it to uh, went out. Oh, Frederick. Okay, so where is this? Okay, so the checkerboard, I was trying to better explain the checkerboard, and I remembered that perhaps Ralston Purina. So let's say the reddish part of the checkerboard, maybe I can explain this with the Ralston Purina Company. And this was a St. Louis-based conglomerate. Uh, so Ralston Purina traced its roots back to 1894, and the checkerboard square has been their logo for years. And I put a link to this so you can read about this. But it was started by Danforth, and it started with Chow. Uh, uh, since it started producing Purina horse chow, Purina dog chow, Purina cat chow, Purina rabbit chow, Purina pig chow, and most famously, the Purina monkey chow. And so, why did they need to make uh, monkey chow? Well, I think the biggest mystery about the Limp Mansion is the Limp baby, the Limp child. So apparently, Mr. Limp couldn't keep himself satisfied with his, wife, and he, after the prohibition and some things, he started to turn some of these preservation uh, parts of the mansion that led to the cave system underneath St. Louis into his private playground, and he invited a girl or a lady or somebody over, and he had a child out of wedlock. And the child ended up living in the Limp Mansion in the upstairs of it and was hardly ever seen. Um, and this is what they call the Limp baby, or they also call this the monkey faced boy. And so these stories persisted around St. Louis about this son that was sired with a woman other than his wife. And while there's no official documentation that the boy existed, the rumors that this boy was hidden in the mansion attic for his entire life have been prevalent over the years. And according to St. Louis historian Joe Gibbons, when he interviewed a former nanny and a chauffeur who worked at the mansion, they verified that the boy existed and was housed in the attic quarters and also housed in the servants' rooms. Uh, Spawned from Will's philandering, that is William uh, Limp, uh, with either one of his many prostitutes or a mansion servant. The boy was born with Down syndrome. The boy was hidden away from the world to cloak the Limp's shame. Known today as the monkey-faced boy, the unfortunate soul continues to show its presence as a ghost in the Limp Mansion. Okay, so we've got these caves that attach to the Limp Mansion over here, and we've got this giant pole, which is the parish of St. Agatha. And so if you like this giant, if you look at the clock on the top of the St. Agatha church, it looks more like, or quite possibly like, the clock on the face. Okay, so the other house that's over in this area, right next to the mansion, is the Chitillion de Minot Mansion. And I'm going to mention this one because Francis Parkman was the original builder, and a guy by the name of Lux, and Lux soaps are mentioned in the back of the book, have a good amount to do with this mansion. And so the property started to be built in 1848 by Henry Chitillion and Nicholas de Menil. That house was purchased by Odie Delure Lux, a granddaughter of Clement Delure de Treget, the founder of Carondelet, Missouri. The property originally was part of the St. Louis Common Fields, and in 1848, Lux remarried Henry. The mill was a physician who, in October, married Emily Sophia Choteau, and the descendants of both of the founders of St. Louis. So, Sophia Choteau is one of the daughter or descendants of the founders of St. Louis, and so is this Nicholas de Menil. So I found it interesting they kind of tied in that history, I believe, to this puzzle. Okay, well, let's get to the nut. So if you don't like the treasure being down by the arch in that little small park, and you'll want to work with me in explaining the lavender and some of these other grisly factors, if you will, we can look at either of two places. We can look at Benton Park, which is a little ways away from the DeMille Mansion and the Lemp Mansion. And if you like Benton Park, I don't know how long the chess tables have been there, but I think there's a round circular park area of this that could play into it. But I actually like Cherokee Park. That's right, I'm officially announcing I do indeed believe that there could possibly be a treasure in Cherokee Park. And I'm announcing it at this time, right this minute. And so let's go look at Cherokee Park. It starts at the corner of DeMille Place and Utah Street. And let's just say you go to the Cherokee Park playground, and you put your guy right here at the corner of the park. Let's put him on Utah Street. Oh, and nobody thinks there's one in Utah. So you put him at Utah Street where the interstate, and there's that's slightly disturbing that's right there. Really disturbing. But anyway, you put him right there at 1301 Utah Street. And you take a gander. What do you see? Oh, you see the Budweiser. You see Budweiser. Are you kidding me? The Budweiser refinery and refinery. The Budweiser plant in St. Louis is right there by Cherokee Park. Oh, okay. So then you turn back the other direction, and you see the St. Agatha Church, and you can see a clock up there on the St. Agatha Church, and kind of look at that clock and the way the numbers are formed, and you go, could be. And then you look back towards Utah Street, and you see what used to be the remnants of the old Lemp Brewery in that part of town. So you can see right down Utah Street over there. So you turn around and you look at this brick fence over here. and then you go back down that direction because you want to go look at stuff in front of the DeMille mansion. So you go down DeMille Place and click down here a few times, and you'll see the big Falstaff sign on the Lemp Mansion. Yeah, they changed the Falstaff where it said Lemp. Man, they changed that Falstaff to the Lemp Mansion Restaurant and Inn. But that's a freaking Falstaff sign. Anyway, so you can go back here and you can look at the Lemp Mansion a little bit, and then you can look at DeMille. But if you look down DeMille Place, you'll see this big tower or this big smokestack right there. That's and it says ISCO on it. It says ISCO. ISCO is the International Shoe Company. They were so bold to put their stenciling of letters on the stack of the property they bought. So, you're looking down, you're at 3323 DeMille Place, and you're looking towards the old brewery that Lemps had. So they could actually go from the brewery, walk all the way underground through the cave system, and get to the Lemp Mansion. And underneath the Lemp Mansion in the caves was a swimming pool and all kinds of other fun stuff. But anyway, okay, so you're looking at the Lemp Mansion, you're up there in the attic, and you now know that that's where the baby Lemp never got out. And you just wonder how much that kid wanted to go up here to the corner. And of course, this park didn't exist at the time. So there was a big renovation project when they widened the interstate here. And about the time that Byron Preiss was secreting casks, they had just redone all of this area at 1546 Utah Street. And all that was new pavement, and that overpass was brand new. So all this ground in here would have been really fresh dirt. There wouldn't have been any trees in here. And I'm just wondering if he went over to the swing set and he said, I'm going to put this inside the swing set that's here at 1546 Utah Street in Cherokee Park. And I'm going to put it here because it's newly fresh soil. Nobody's going to notice it. And guess what? I know the story about the guy because I wrote about him in National Lampoon who ended up swinging from the arch. And if I just pick one of the saddles, so now if you take and you turn the saddle upside down, you now get basically the shape that would be required to sit in one of the swings. So now you have to decide, well, which of these 4 swings do I want to dig underneath? Well, you're probably going to have to go back to the verse and re-engineer it, come up with it. But if you're at that swing set, you can see the Budweiser facility right there. The way in which they paint, well, I'm not going to give that hint away right now. But anyway, so you've got a pole. The Lavender Lady would have been living right in that house. And so, I don't know, I'm thinking Cherokee Park. Well, okay, so we went a long way to get to where we're at right now. And I figured why not go a little bit further and see if there's anything in the back of the book that we could use to maybe substantiate any of these ideas of a treasure being in St. Louis. So I thought I'd just go to the back of the book. And unlike the last one where I could see the thing in the background with the Simmons, I'm just going to go through story by story and see if I can come up with anything that I think is a dead-on, giveaway. Again, I already matched the Sweat Sylphs to another puzzle. The Prep Ghoul, I've kind of already matched to another one. The West Ghost is obviously a bunch of naked people in a pool. I'm now thinking that could be beach volleyball. The Pilgrim, other people have put that as a known location in, I think I put the Freudians already, the Screaming Mimi, the Joke Fiend, Household Unfamiliars, Scrubopobus, the Garden-Goyle. So the Garden-Goyle could potentially be part of the solve for St. Louis. And the only reason is because the Monsanto Corporation in 1982 was headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. And so if you look at what the chemical Roundup, which came out from them, but what the problem is, Roundup wasn't actually a Monsanto product at this time. So I don't know if I can actually use that. Anti-Manticore, Backyard Barbecue, New York Giants, the Stylish Devil, the Boogeyman. Let's get to the Mind Boggles. So let's just look at the Mind Boggles. And I'm now on page 94 and 95. What kind of beer is the Mind Boggler drinking? And does he have a owl's fingernail or no? Well, he's staring across and he's looking at, he's holding a Budweiser. Okay, so the Mind Boggles, the Mind Boggles talks about dial soap. Okay, and the dial soap will lead you back to, if you look at the history of soap, it will lead you back to Lux. And we already talked about the DeMille relationship. And so I don't know if that one, but the other thing is that the Mind Boggles also lead you to Philip Danforth Armor and the Stockyards, in which you can make some inferences from that. Okay, the Sophomore Jinx. So I'm going through the Passing Fancies. Teen Angels, the Elf Alpha, the Damon Runyon, Phantasmagory, Poltergeist, the Gin Rummy, the Filthy Hobbit, the Alibi Elf. And I might be missing stuff in some of these that might relate to this. Obviously, the Leprechaun's drinking beer, another beer drinking thing. Oh, there's the Tupperware guy. I'm really trying to just get to the story that says the St. Louis Mugwump, the Spirit of 76. The Bugbear, Foul Sewer Ogres, the Inner Genie. Here he is, finally. So, the Spirit of St. Louis. There's the limp. There's the foot with the arch, with the owl's toes, with the shadow, if you will. So I'm just going to go through and read this one because I think it contains some information. So the spirit of St. Louis is Babbitt Redo. Babbitt Redo. Although it is named for the magnificent urban center in the Show Me State, the spirit does not confine his operation to its environs, but wanders the heartland of this great nation, from the grain belt to the sun belt, from the Bible belt to the gun belt. Okay, so there's got to be some sort of belt, like belt, uh, beltway. I wonder if there's a Benton beltway, or I wonder if they call that new stretch of highway the beltway. I don't know about this. I'm going to just research on the fly. St. Louis Beltway. Interstate 270, Illinois, makes a large portion of the outer belt freeway of Greater St. Louis. Interstate I-70, also known as the Inner Belt Expressway. Interstate 170, also known as the Inner Belt Expressway, is an 11.17-mile north-south auxiliary interstate highway in Greater St. Louis. 270-255 loop around St. Louis. Okay, my point is, he's telling you that they've just put a beltway in around St. Louis. Anyway, that's the belt. It's the greatest nation. Man is suddenly, mysteriously motivated to tighten his belt, knock back a couple of belts. Okay, that's a drinking euphemism, and belt the wife and kids around for a while. Well, I think there were some problems with that. Anyway, the dauntless Charles Lindbergh, in a craft named after a creature, flew solo to France. France! French reference! Spirit of St. Louis, French reference already. And Gay Paris went back home and declared himself an isolationist. That's the spirit of St. Louis at work for you, fella. Okay, so in case you didn't know Lindbergh's past, he had a little problem with a beltway and what was aforementioned above. So anyway, much otherwise inexplicable American behavior is the work of this anima within, a direct descendant of the spirit of 76. It is the spirit of St. Louis who inspires us to approve in practice what we deplore in theory and accuse all who do otherwise of being hypocrites. To celebrate with bands and bunting a precious, successful revolution in politics and morality while jailing or at least ostracizing anyone advocating political or moral change in the present. Operating by such subtle means as the Saturday Evening Post, okay, the Post Dispatch, if you will, covers soda pop commercials, and Walt Disney's movie The Spirit of St. Louis has tattooed upon the national imagination a vision of green lawns, white picket fences, Pop's Malt Shop, cute little dogs named Spot, calico bonnets, freckled, pigtailed happy apple pies, and smiling porters. Who knew their place? Helping us aboard. The city after which the spirit is named is in turn named in honor of French king, famous for his piety and successful slaughter of foreigners. There is no adequate English translation for the French word chauvinism. Chateau, Choto. Or Choto Mansion, maybe? But we all know what it means, don't we? In La Belle, France, to this day, all citizens from the most decadent aristocrat to the dirtiest Marseilles gutter waif aspire to the condition of being middle class. This lust to rest snug, and secure behind a barricade of ill-gotten and tasteless material possessions was spread to the American Midwest by the sharp-dealing, gravy-grasping, butter-hoarding spirit of St. Louis. Okay, well, the Lemp family basically had old money, and they built all this swimming pool, underground playground. They were philanderers. Uh, the Lemp cheated on his wife, Hanlon. Uh, anyway, the story of the Lemp family is basically right there. Listen for the sound of the spirit of St. Louis aboard or abroad in the small town light, the rustic creak of crickets, the domestic rustle of shake and bake. Okay, so that's a craft foods uh, thing. Uh, a universal murmur of agreement with the troglodyte TV talk show host, the consoling sizzle of bugs immolating themselves on the backyard insect ionizer. Well, I didn't look up who invented the bug zapper, but anyway, the discreet weekly flushing of the toilet, the decisive snap of shutting pocketbooks, the righteous whack of a razor strap across a naughty toddler's bottom. Oh, now we're getting into a child. The secure clatter and clang of deadbolts and chains securing screen doors. Let's not let that baby out. And the slam of the window, the hum of the humidifiers. Okay, the humidifiers. So the Limp Mansion basically was the first to get uh, radiator style heating in its house. Uh, just 5 years after, it was like one of the first houses to have radiator based. And then, like one of these earlier ones, I saw this radiator, and I'm starting to think maybe that was the Lavender Lady that had appeared there. Um, and Chas smacked the perfunctory marital kisses. Then silence, save for the dim and distant sound of something somewhere being smothered. The gravy, the smothering of the gravy. I don't know. I think I need to look a little bit more into the shake and bake, but all that seems to be. Uh, oh, a lot of people unfortunately shake their babies. Oh, that's not good. Okay, I'm just not going to think about that anymore. I'm go on and look for some more confirmation in the back of the book. Uh, the Chicago World's Fairy, the Dixie Pixie, Werner von Brownie, the Jack O'Lectern, the Tinkerbells, Hounds of News, Typographical Terrors, Glitches, Toll Trolls, Job Goblin, Gremlins, Economy-Sized Giant. Oh yeah, previously the Unreal Real Estate Brokers. Forgot to tell you about that lady. Anyway, let's see. High interest rates. Okay. Well, again, I don't have a whole lot of back of the book confirmation for this, but just the 1 foot thing with the arch on it, the fact that there's so many arches in this, I just can't get over the the fact that, this is probably got to be uh, a St. Louis puzzle because of the arches and the French. You can't get any more French than St. Louis. And so I'm going to stick by my idea that if you go to Cherokee Park and you look under the swing set apparatus, or that box, because that concrete around that's old concrete around that area where the swing sets are. And you can stare out there at the uh, place, and it's on Utah Street, which I always like that. And it's by this giant pole, because you can look down the DeMille thing and see the giant pole. And the giant step could be across uh, the Beltway. But then again, the belt could be Shore Park Lane or something. Uh, but anyway, I don't know if there's any shape confirmations in the back of the book that I might be missing for this location. Um, but any of these instances of the Mira Chimera, I may want to start considering the Mira Chimera as the Lavender Lady, perhaps. Maybe that's where I'm missing out. Is that I should be looking at the Mira Chimera, glittering, glamorous but highly elusive spirit is believed somebody to be extinct. She can only be seen in the mirror, and her many devotees pursue the sight of her in charm schools, makeup clinics, slimming gyms. Mira Chimera, like many other bewitching fairies of ballad and song, offer the promise of romance, wealth, and power to whoever sees the uh, and captures her. Specifically, she aspires to believe in Americans of all sexes. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I once thought that was Norma Jean Baker, but again, like I said, I've got the guy in the beer. There is this child that's sleeping in the paltry Geist, uh, and I haven't got him matched anywhere yet. And so maybe he belongs. Uh, Maybe he's the one that belongs here. I don't know. That's the problem. I don't have all these completely matched together to where I think the best clues are. But the mind boggler, um, I just see that can of Budweiser uh, there. Um, I wish there was more instance of something swinging in the back of the book, like swinging from a rope or swinging from a thing. Oh, I forgot about the screaming meme or this. The baby, the Lindbergh baby. So the screaming Mimi. Perhaps this is where I'm missing out. I might have left out the screaming Mimi as the possibility for the confirmations, because this is the Infans Infernus Inflictus, the screaming Mimi. Well, I'm going to read this a little bit because this one might be the one that goes with uh, the Lindbergh baby, goes with St. Louis. Anyway, these tiny terrors are actually changelings, wicked creatures with the fairy swap to human babies. Screaming meanings infest public places, churches, and the fine restaurants and concerts. Their experiencing shrieks are inevitable to any public means of transportation. Oh, well, trains, buses, planes, and especially elevators. Although hideously audible and appallingly visible to strangers, the screaming Mimi appears to members of its own family as a sweet, chirping cherub. Oh, wow, that language is pretty scary. What kind of baby or child screams out just randomly? So I'm going to read that again, because although hideously audible and appalling visibly to strangers, the screaming Mimi appears to members of its own family as a sweet, chirping cherub. It is a curious paradox that while the birth rate of American infants declines, the screaming Mimi population is booming. Perhaps this is because the minuscule monsters are most commonly seen and heard by the child-free. The more child-free adults there are around, the more the screaming Mimi will be seen and feared. The screaming Mimi's full-throated howls of outrage, boredom, and frustration are especially upsetting when they occur, as they most often do, in the outrageously boring and frustrating situations. When they go out, anyway. Um, to all but its mother, the most horrible aspect of the screaming Mimi's behavior is its vampire-like quality. Believe it or not, those haunting, unearthly, nocturnal wails signify the creature's desire to fasten its mouth upon the breast of a mortal woman and extract the life-giving fluids. Uh, the fiend in infant form first appeared in the cradles of Old England. This may account for the Anglo-Saxons' preference for the companionship of dogs and their habit of belaboring the buttocks off of their offspring with nails, canes, and stout oak cudgels. To the thatched-brained serfs of Britain, the screaming Mimi was known as a changeling. In America, it's often diagnosed as hyperactive. Numerous screaming Mimis yowling in the homespun cribs of the 13 original Kyres inspired Daniel Boone, Lewis and Clark, and other pioneer patriots to explore the West. Anything to get out of the house. In addition to the characteristic noise, a certain odor is often an indication of the screaming Mimi's presence. It's sort of a ammonia-like aroma, alone or accompanied by a dark, heavy, sulfurous scent, not unlike that of English cooking. There is a lamp post that's fairly interesting in here in the screaming Mimi. And there's a detail on this building that I really want to check against the DeMille Mansion and also against the Lent Mansion. And also this brick that's behind this baby is reminiscent of the brick that was used in the Limp buildings. In fact, all of the brick buildings around that part of St. Louis use that brick on page 71. On 72, you've got another instance of the screaming meetings needs changeling mother wishes the stork would take her back. Oh, that's a little disturbing. A baby that its mother would like to have somebody take back. Well, in the case of the one in St. Louis, the mother actually didn't have anything to do with the screaming Mimi baby. So there's another. I just noticed this. Did you notice how the wood pattern in the image for St. Louis 7 is similar to this base that we have here on page 72? Did you notice how similar that base is to the grandfather clock? Maybe goes with goes with this one. The fact that we found Burt Reynolds, who was a Cherokee and Indian in the previous puzzle, linking him here, and I think we might be onto something. All right, well, I'm going to check back with the chat, see if anything's going on. Howdy, folks. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Oh, I went over an hour. I meant to be under an hour. Well, anyway, I'm just wrapping up. I'm pretty sure with all the people that are purveying solve ideas for the secret and saying Cherokee Park, that all those people that are posting on Facebook and other places are actually just doing that because of the fact that they actually know that one of them is in a Cherokee Park. And more than likely, the Cherokee Park that it's in is the one here by the Budweiser Brewery, the one that has to do with the limp baby, the one that has to do with Down syndrome. I guess what they thought is that if they put a Down syndrome baby in a lavender background with a arch, that should be enough information for you to solve the puzzle. And then put a guy suspended, like, he's suspended from a hoop. And if you look at how the swing sets are formed, they're basically the hoop, and then there's a bar, and then there's the two chains, and then the guy goes like this. And maybe the hoop structure, the hoop in that is just merely to point you to the fact that you're swinging, that you're taking this oscillating motion like this, and that the screaming Mimi in this book in the back is supposed to tell you what you're looking for. And then they confirm it by putting a story in there about the spirit of St. Louis. I don't know. I like it. I'm liking my idea of getting out of my park because they're mentioning those odors. And I'm just going to do this. Characteristics of Down syndrome babies. Down syndrome. Features. So a flattened face around the bridge of the nose, almond-shaped eyes that slant upwardly, a short neck, small ears, a tongue that tends to stick out of the mouth, tiny white spots on the iris of the eye, small hands and feet, a single line across, the palm of the hand. Oh, God, the palmar crease. Oh, man. Jesus, these people are rude. So if you look at the image, do you see the palmar crease? Do you now see the palmar crease in the hand? I think the fingernails, I was relating the fingernails to an owl's toes. I actually think that those fingernails might be a pinky finger that sometimes curves towards the thumb. Well, I can't say that the pinky finger in this image curves that much towards the thumb. But let me ask the Googly if the Down syndrome babies have toenail problems. Down syndrome toenail. Toenail problems are almost common and include fungal infections, thickening of the nail, and ingrown toenails. Boy, howdy. I'm really kind of getting mad. The more I look at this image and the more I look at what Down syndrome children have, the more I'm really getting disturbed by the people who wrote this book. But anyway, so I'm going to wrap up here. Hope everybody had enjoyed the show. I've now changed my mind on where I think this one's hidden. I now actually truly think it's hidden in Cherokee Park. I think it's in that swing set, that square area where the 3 posts are for the swing set, and that the hoop that you're trying to discover is the frame for a swing set, and it's confirmed by the fact that you've got this guy dangling from a thing at the top like this. All right, folks, that's it. Jeff, thanks for joining in. Somebody else is in here looking around, so good to see you as well. All right, you guys, have a good day. I'll be back tomorrow. Do 2 more of these.